So we have a serious problem that everyone needs to be paying attention to, and that is the increasing control of large companies over swathes of the internet and its infrastructure. Hi everyone, my name is Robert Mizen, and yes, that intro was doom and gloomy. However, it is a serious problem, and in this video I want to make a few points about why it's important that you and everyone else pays attention to the increasing control of companies on the internet. There's a YouTube channel called The Linux Experiment. Now, it's a very good Linux YouTube channel. I enjoyed the content very much. And in that video, they presented the issue around internet vacuums. If you're not sure what an internet vacuum is, in short, what it means is your experience of the internet is somewhat controlled. Now, this could be from a legal perspective. So if you live in places like China and so on, obviously the government controls that. But a lot of people know this, but companies also do the same thing. So if you use Google Maps and Google News and Google Drive and Google Mail and so on, you're actually experiencing part of the web that Google defined it as. The same with Facebook. A lot of people only get their news from Facebook, which is terrifying. And therefore their experience of the internet is somewhat limited to how those companies define it. If you've seen recently with things like Twitter and so on and cancel culture, whatever, the efficacy is problematic. It doesn't matter whether you sit on the left or the right of political spectrums. The problem is control over the services. On top of that, we also have control of the infrastructure. Now, this is problematic for a number of reasons, but primarily this is problematic because essentially what you'll have is a few very large companies controlling massive parts of the infrastructure. Now, some of these companies are doing good work. Cloudflare is going to be one of the examples I'm going to use. However, despite good moves by Cloudflare to introduce lots of services and DDoS protection and proxy services to secure various web services that you want to use and so on, there's 101 services they have and more. However, the growing control of companies like Cloudflare also needs to be taken with a massive pinch of salt, because essentially we are putting many eggs into one basket. So if something was to happen to that company, then potential problems stemming from that would be disastrous for lots of people. So what can you do about this? Individually, not that much, to be honest with you. However, this whole idea of control is a reactionary type of thing. So if lots of people use Facebook and Google and so on, then those companies get more powerful. In the past, when I was in college and university and learning certain software for game development and programming and 3D modeling, we would use software from companies like Autodesk or Adobe. Now, lots of people use those companies' products, and therefore those companies get more powerful. They get richer. And if you've seen in the last few years how much hate Adobe, for example, have got for software as a service. Let's pay every month for software that you don't own. And if they take it away, well, stuff you, basically. But there are lots of alternatives. So the term FOSS, which stands for Free and Open Source Software, is something that everyone should be paying attention to, because this is not just a Linux area. This is an area across all segments of technology. So this is Mac OS, this is Windows, this is Linux, this is on your phone, this is on your tablets, this is on servers, everywhere. And the more options you have means that we can, as users, help to put pressure on companies to say, well, this is what we want and this is what we don't want. And so what I wanted to do with this video is to kind of point out that there is so many versions of software that you're used to. So if you use Photoshop, for example, there are loads of versions like Photoshop on the web. And lots of people ask me, okay, well, Robert, what do you use? I get my students ask me all the time. So everyone knows that I use Manjaro on my computer. Now, my daily driving computer is Manjaro. My phone is iOS. So how do I interact those two things? For example, my computer at work is Mac OS, but the majority of my time is spent on Linux. And so therefore I get very often questions like, okay, so what do you use to store your files? What do you use to edit documents like Word documents in Excel? What do you use for 3D modeling? What do you use for programming, etc.? And I thought that would be a really good idea because I could just post a list of, hey, these are the 20 best video editing programs for Linux. The problem is I don't use 20 programs for editing video. I use 2. I daily drive one of them 90% of the time and the other 10% when I have certain issues with updates and so on. So I'm not going to post a list of 20 best video editors because there are hundreds of websites out there that list 20 best free alternatives to Premiere, for example, and that doesn't help anyone. What I can do is I can tell you what I use and my experiences of those programs. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be hosting a live updated public repository on GitHub, and on that repository is going to be a list of the software that I'm using all the time. Now this software will be fully or partly open source. It will be by small companies, large companies, but basically what software am I using to get stuff done, and what choices am I making, or the rationale behind the choices of using that software. And basically, as software updates and changes to something I like or don't like, I will add and remove programs from there. And hopefully from this, it might give some of you some ideas about what I'm using. So what I'm going to do is post a link in the description below for the software that I'm using, covering a range of different categories. And then I will welcome anyone to comment here or to write to me on Twitter or to Mastodon, and I'm going to leave all the links for that in the description below, so you can actually ask, hey, so I saw your recommendation for, say, DaVinci Resolve, and then I will say, well, I'm using it because of this reason and this reason, and they'll ask me, do you have any other software recommendations? And then you'll also be able to see on that repository a list of the software that I'm using. So I'm hoping that this will be really helpful for you. So that's all for today's video. I hope that this information was informative for you. Remember, I am going to leave a link in the description below for the GitHub repository, as well as the links to Twitter and Mastodon. I'm also going to leave a link in the description below to the Linux Experiments video discussing the control, because he does a very good job on that and I don't want to replicate the same information. So please do click on that video as well and head over to his channel. Very good channel, definitely recommend. As always, I'm Robert and I will see you in the next video.